So I do want to talk about one of the issues that has been boiling right now, and the time frame on this program, of course, only allows a little bit. So what I would like to do is look at the new gun legislation that is promised by Congress and has been passed in portions of Congress, and particularly the Senate. And our own senator from the state of Texas, John Cornyn, who has been a part of this sellout, and that's exactly what it is. And I'll tell you right up front, it's a sellout to the Constitution and to the natural rights of mankind. And we'll see about that in just a few moments. So we're talking about, of course, the aftermath of Uvalde, Texas, in which, of course, you know the story there, and so many children died at the hands of a gunman. So just as in these crisis moments, many people in Congress feeling the pressure of the public which is frequently unschooled in the Constitution and unfamiliar with the constitutional responsibilities and how it has been divided up. And partly that's not their fault, because Congress has been disregarding the Constitution for a long time, as well as all branches of government. So they have been putting pressure upon Congress. They've passed laws now, or at least they've gotten laws in place, supposedly to make it safer regarding firearms. And, of course, the left, you know where they are. They probably don't listen to this program. They're all about a confiscation. As a matter of fact, some people say, well, why do these things happen in the United States? Why in the country of freedom and this country that's supposedly built upon Christian principles do we have these mass shootings? You don't have them over in Europe. You don't have them in China. You don't have them in other countries. You don't read about mass shootings in Eastern countries and Eastern Asian countries or in the Mideast. You don't read about that. Well, that's true. But at the same time, you remember Tiananmen Square during Clinton's administration, when people have an objection to the government, all you have are sticks and stones, and then you're opposing tanks. And the tanks roll over people, and they just shoot 1,000 of you down, and that's all you've got. So America is a different country because we have the right is within the people. And the power is supposed to be we the people. And so we'll start there for just a few moments. So let's talk about the gun legislation that has been proposed by congressmen, particularly at this point by senators. And there are 10 rhinos, Republicans in name only, that join with the Democrats in pushing, part of the laws are pushing what are called red flag laws. So let's talk about those for just a moment. Connecticut Democrat Senator Chris Murphy, he was so excited about the deals that they were brokering with these rhinos that he tweeted this: "We have a deal. Today, a bipartisan group of 20 senators, there would be 10 Democrats, 10 Republicans, is announcing a breakthrough agreement on gun violence, the first in 30 years that will save lives." Well, let's just stop here for a moment. Number one, this idea about we have a deal in a bipartisan group, and people supposedly think that because something is bipartisan, therefore it's good. Wrong. That's not good. That's not what we're looking for, simply bipartisanship. We're looking for rights before God and constitutional authority. That's what we need. It doesn't matter how many Republicans are on it, because Republicans can be just as dangerous as can the Democrats. Now, when he said for the first time in 30 years, he was referring to the 1994 Clinton gun ban, and that was something that supposedly hindered the purchasing of semi-automatic firearms, which of course, their definitions of semi-automatic is very expanding and elastic and inaccurate, by the way. But that's what he's talking about for the first time in 30 years. Now, they try to avoid in this legislation, and I think this is important because we're going to deal with red flag laws here. They avoided the very wording of red flag laws. These are not mentioned specifically. And why is that the case? Because they don't want to raise a red flag over the proposal from those who understand and support the Constitution of the United States. That's why Murphy's Law refers to intervention orders that would apply to those who are, and this is the wording, who are adjudicated as mentally ill. So intervention orders for those who are adjudicated as mentally ill. What is that? It's a red flag law. Now, how does it work? It means you are to watch your neighbor, whether it be at school, workplace, at church, in the marketplace. You are to watch your neighbor, and if you see something that is suspicious, you see someone acting suspiciously, then you alert the authorities, and the authorities then move in. They remove firearms without due process, without constitutional protection from an accusation. They remove firearms, and it is your obligation at this point to show that you're innocent. So they're assuming that you're guilty, and all it takes is someone blowing the whistle on you, just as that happened in Nazi Germany, where they encouraged children to turn in their parents, workers to turn in the people who were employers, as to whether or not they were Jewish and what they suspected to be the case, and the authorities moved in. Exactly the same principle, exactly the same scenario. And if not, I would like someone to point out the difference. That's a red flag law. I want to show you, before we close this segment, how slimy and secretive and clandestine and really deceptive are the rhinos, Republicans, and specifically Texas Senator John Cornyn, deceptive to the nth degree on this particular issue. Now, I listened to him carefully. I was laid in a hospital bed, after all, and I listened to what he had to say, and Tucker Carlson asked him about these red flag laws, and here's how Cornyn responded. I'm going by memory here alone, and here's what he had to say. He said these laws, or this gun legislation proposal, does not, and here's the word he used several times, does not mandate to the states that they implement red flag laws. There's no danger, he said, that we are mandating to the states, as if to say, of course, we're not the king and queen, and we're making them do it. You know, when I heard that statement, I thought, just as you thought, how stupid does he think we are? They're attaching federal funding to these laws. That's what they're doing. In other words, they're trying to bribe the states into passing red flag laws, unconstitutional as they may be. Bribe the states to do it, and they're holding over our heads billions of dollars in federal funding. No, they're not mandating it, but they're incentivizing it to the nth degree. Their goal is to get every state on board with red flag laws. Now, red flag laws, as I mentioned, are unconstitutional. They take away, number one, your Second Amendment rights, and we're going to talk about that in just a moment. They take away your Second Amendment rights. They take away the right of the Fourth Amendment, which protects you from unreasonable searches and seizures. This is how our Constitution is built into the system, that someone makes an accusation, they must go to a judge and show with evidence that Bill Lockwood is a danger to society, and someone must be able to see this, and the judge must be able to see it, and they must be able to sign a warrant for my arrest. That's all gone. All you have here is not a preponderance of evidence or anything like it. Instead, you have the idea that, well, here's an accusation. We think that Bill Lockwood has firearms, and therefore they call it reasonable suspicion. Now, I want you to think about this. In the Constitution, in the constitutional system, the high standard is, and if I go to a judge as an attorney and say we need, or as the police department say we need an arrest warrant for Lockwood, I must have probable cause. Everybody knows and is familiar with probable cause. The bar now is lowered to reasonable suspicion. Now, if you don't think that's a danger point, you look around at the state of Colorado and other states that have already passed red flag laws. And those red flag laws are implemented for them to make illegal searches and seizures from someone who simply makes accusation. What happens when a person says, you know what, I have had an ongoing feud with my neighbor for a long time. I'm part of the Hatfield clan, and I don't like the McCoys, and I see they have a gun in their car, and I'm going to make an accusation, and I'm going to raise a red flag. What happens? The sheriff department goes over to the McCoys, and takes the firearms. Unreasonable search and seizure. It assumes that they're guilty before they're proven innocent, and that's the opposite of what our whole system is about. And that's what John Cornyn is all about. And he wants to cloak it in the idea that, well, we're not mandating to the states. Well, no, John, you're incentivizing the states to do it. Unconstitutional all the way. We'll be back in a moment.